Hey, my name is Chris Brennan, and this is your horoscope for Cancer and Cancer Rising for the month of January of 2019. Joining me today is Cam White. Hey, Cam.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
And we're going to be going through your horoscope for the next few weeks, looking at the transits for those of you with Cancer Rising. So here, let's jump to the transit chart, which shows where the planets will start at the beginning of the month and where they will end by the end of the month. We've also got an ingress chart that shows the dates when planets change signs, when they station retrograde or direct, and when they form exact aspects with each other. So where should we start for this month?
Let's start on the seventh house, Cancer.
Okay. Yeah, seventh house is where all the activity is just clear. Just looking at the chart, you can just see this huge cluster of all these planets in the seventh house of relationships this month.
Yeah, and I mean, starting off at the month, January, what is that, 4th and 5th, we have Mercury going into Capricorn, and we have the solar eclipse, new moon in Capricorn, all happening in your seventh house. And I'm sure you felt Saturn, either he's already went over your descendant or he's coming close to your descendant. I'm sure you felt Saturn in your seventh house either way, but it may get, I shouldn't say it may, it's going to get a lot louder this month.
Yeah, I mean, last month we did a homework assignment. We told everybody to post in the comment section on YouTube for the horoscope for December what their experience of Saturn and Capricorn going through your seventh house of relationships has been like so far this past year, ever since Saturn went into Capricorn in December of 2017. And we got a lot of great comments and a lot of interesting feedback about how that's working out so far. But this month, it seems like some of those themes that may have been almost just background themes over the past year of Saturn going through Capricorn will really start to get amped up as we get this first lunar eclipse, or first solar eclipse, I should say, in Capricorn, of a new sequence of eclipses that are going to take place over the course of the next year or two.
Yeah, and these eclipses are just emphasizing whatever, house that it's really going into. And with Mercury being in your seventh house in Capricorn now, where it's, communicating in relationships, working on that communication, working on, Saturn things are like, where are your boundaries? Where are you wanting to, connect? Where are you wanting to have a little bit more of, I don't want to say discipline because that's a weird word for relationship matter, but
no, I mean, it can be a good relationship. Like, there's different, because relationships take work. And so sometimes putting work into, and that can be like a form of discipline, which is like, how much work are you putting into the relationship versus how much is your partner? And is there like an even exchange there, or is something unbalanced for some reason?
Yeah, and I think with the South Node right there too, I think this is definitely coming into a space, especially with the North Node being in Cancer in your first house. I think this is definitely coming from a space of like, hey, where are not necessarily the issues in relationships, but where do you need to put more boundaries up? Where do you need to have a little bit of framework, get things a little bit more concentrated? And I think this eclipse, this whole new moon is really going to be putting the whole, I mean, it's both the luminaries in one sign and one spot. They're wanting you to look at your seventh house in Capricorn, and Saturn's there, Mercury's there. It's like you have a lot of little tasks to do that are going to end up being like a whole framework, like what's the word I'm looking for? Foundation change.
Yeah, and foundation is a good keyword because since this is a solar eclipse, it's like a super amped up new moon taking place in your seventh house of relationships. So there's going to be sort of setting the seeds or setting the foundations of something new in the sphere of relationships that's going to grow and develop, especially over the next 6 months, until eventually in the middle of next year, there's going to be a lunar eclipse in Capricorn, which will represent a culmination of events that were initiated here this month in January. So for some of you, this could be something like starting a new relationship with the new moon taking place in your seventh house. For other people, it could be just starting a new phase in a current relationship. If you're already in a relationship, but some sort of new chapter opening up that grows and develops over the course of the next 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Capricorn stuff, especially with Mars and everything. But I mean, the next thing that we have after that is Uranus going direct in your 10th house in Aries, where Mars will also be starting off at like the end of December 31st. Mars is going to be in Aries that whole time in his domicile where he can be the most Mars that he possibly can be. And I think Uranus going direct right there is bringing these themes that you guys have experienced for the past, 7 years with Uranus being in Aries, bringing these themes around career, your boss, your public vocation, the public eye, more general like life stuff. I like to say that the 10th house is what everyone kind of sees. With Uranus going direct right there, it's kind of like one last punch, one last boom before we get Uranus going back into Taurus. And what's important about that is Mars is going to be there too. I mean, you had Mars retrograde in your 8th house, and you had Mars go through Pisces in your 9th house, which, that's probably not even, that's not any easier. But now that Mars is in your 10th house, there's a lot, there's more things that you're focusing on in your career. You may have some issues being brought up, Mars and Aries. We were talking about this a lot. It's, confrontation issues, maybe some fights somewhere.
Yeah, it's like best case scenario, Mars just brings a ton of additional energy and focus to whatever area of the chart that it transits. So best case scenario, this is going to be a month where you're going to put a lot more focus and a lot more energy and have to really like burn the candle at both ends, so to speak, in the area of career and your overall life direction and your sort of work in general, working on your career and working on your reputation. But the sort of downside of that is sometimes that excess of energy can boil over and indicate tension or strife or sometimes conflict in the area of career as well.
Yeah, regardless, you're going to have a lot on your plate because something that coincides with this is Venus moving into Sagittarius the next day. And that's going into your 6th house of service, of employment, of what you're doing every single day, your habits, your routine, as well as your health. And when Venus goes into Sagittarius, she's going to meet up with Jupiter, make a conjunction. She's also going to be trining Mars. And so although Mars is in Aries in your 10th house, where on the surface you're accomplishing more, there's a lot more work to be done. Venus and Jupiter being in your 6th house of like, your habits, your everyday routine, I really think is going to be a positive lift of like, yeah, sure, you may have a big workload on you, but you're actually enjoying your day-to-day habits, your day-to-day routine. Venus is bringing a lot of value and a lot of, Venus in Sagittarius is like value in learning, value in exploring, value in adventuring and having fun with things at the end of the day.
Yeah, look at this amazing, it's not just a Venus-Jupiter conjunction that takes place around the 21st, 22nd at 15, 16 degrees of Sagittarius, but it actually ends up forming a grand fire trine with Mars, which is right about 14 Aries at that time, and then the moon swoops in very quickly and completes the grand trine from the middle of Leo.
Yeah, it's all looking positive. And this with this being in your 6th house, this is focused on health, focused on habits and, even employment and stuff. So I really do think even though Mars and Aries may bring some issues in that 10th house area, I think you're really going to start to enjoy being busy, having things to do, having things to go and learn and explore.
Sure. Yeah, there's definitely some balance. Let's see. So having that benefic transit through the 6th, other manifestations of that can sometimes be a positive development with respect to figuring out something out with respect to health matters. So sometimes if there was an issue previously, there can be like finally figuring out how to deal with that or how to address that properly in a way that's constructive and useful. And that could be a very positive manifestation of that 6th house conjunction of Venus and Jupiter. It could also be a positive development if you have anybody that works under you in a sort of support role. Either finding somebody that can help you out more on a day-to-day basis if you haven't had that previously, or perhaps just having some new development in that relationship that's beneficial to you and that allows your life and your work to run more smoothly.
Yeah, definitely. And then, after that, this is also going to coincide with that fire energy stuff because at the chart that you just pulled up, after that, we have the sun ingressing into Aquarius, and the next day we have the last total lunar eclipse in Leo, which is happening in your 2nd house. And I do think this is going to be quite a big deal as the sun goes into your 8th house. That's more of the themes focused on other people's resources, shared resources, change, stuff like that. But as the moon goes into Leo, and we have this last total lunar eclipse, this is happening in your 2nd house where we've had these eclipses for the past year and a half. So themes around money, themes around assets and your valuables or things that you physically own, physical items that you possess. This is kind of bringing all of that to culmination and kind of having one last, like, how would you describe it? One last, I don't want to say boom.
Yeah, just like a culmination and bringing to completion some things that were initiated over the past year or two, because it's been bouncing back and forth between eclipses, lunar eclipses and solar eclipses in their 2nd house of finances and their 8th house of other people's money, and sometimes the relationship between the two. But this is the final eclipse in that series taking place in your 2nd house. So there's something that's being brought to completion or being wrapped up at this time about your finances that it's not new. It's not something that's just going to come out of nowhere that you haven't known about up till this point, but instead it's sort of wrapping up a sequence or a phase that's been playing itself out over the course of the past couple of years as we've gotten things like the quote-unquote Great American Eclipse last year and a half ago, which was in Leo, which is a solar eclipse.
That was a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that was already yeah, let's.
Yeah, no, I felt that. But I mean, it's happening in your second house. This is good for positive for finance stuff. I mean, it just sounds like Mars in your 10th and Venus and Jupiter in your 6th sounds like you're really busy with work, and so you make a little bit more money with that.
Yeah, it's definitely activating that whole fire trine for the Cancer risings is the whole financial work, career sort of triad in the chart of like second house finances, sixth house work and service to others or sometimes employees, and 10th house career and overall life direction and vocation. And sort of at the top of that is just that Uranus transit of stationing for the last time in your 10th house and reflecting on some of the radical changes and sometimes unexpected new directions that you've headed over the course of the past decade since 2011 when Uranus first went into that sign. And you may have one last look back at how different your sort of life trajectory is now in 2018 at the end of that transit compared to where it began in 2011 when Uranus first moved into Aries and first moved into your 10th house of career.
And with this eclipse too, a few days later, once Mercury goes into Aquarius and this goes into your 8th house, I think this is also going to keep the focus on not only like your money, your possessions, what you have, but the 8th house is other people's money, shared resources, taxes, the government. So I do think with Mercury going into the 8th house, where it's going to be the focus is on, you know, not only shared resources and stuff like that, the 8th house can also be anxieties, fears, big changes, dealing with death, dealing with basically anything relatively bad. But as Mercury goes through there, a couple days later, we have the Sun Mercury conjunction going on in the 8th house. And that is basically a degree off from where the Mars retrograde was. It's happening at 8 degrees. And I think this is going to be clearing up a lot of that area that you might have had problems with over this past summer with Mars retrograding there.
So that conjunction of the Sun and Mercury, so the sequence is like the Sun moves into Aquarius on the 20th of January, then Mercury joins it and moves into Aquarius on the 24th of January, and then finally the two conjoin on the 29th of January. And that's a really good point, that's sort of the exact area of the chart and the exact degrees where Mars went retrograde last year, and for some people might have caused some problems in terms of the general topic of other people's money or how the finances of other people relate to your own finances last summer, with Mars sometimes creating like controversy or strife in that area of the chart. But now we have the Sun and Mercury forming that conjunction and kind of sweeping up and cleaning up after the Mars transit in a way that might be helpful or productive in the aftermath of what was a pretty long, like 6-month transit for a lot of people. Yeah.
And I think it's going to bring a lot of insight and clarity, and also finding ways to connect the dots and bring things together, you know, where Mars kind of separated things, and, you know, Aquarius is dealing with alienation and isolation and stuff like that. And the Sun and Mercury are kind of like, okay, well, let's find the pieces to connect again. It's kind of like when you break something, like, you know, if you broke this table in half, it's going to look all like, you know, jaggedy and whatnot. You got to connect them, just the right pieces together.
Yeah.
And I think that's what
please don't break my table.
I'm not going to break your table.
No, I like that though, because it's the idea of also like reestablishing communication, or sometimes if there was a severing or separation or strife that occurred with respect to the 8th house and with respect to shared resources or other people's finances, sometimes reaching out and trying to reestablish communication in a way to smooth things over could be a great use of this transit towards the end of January, when we have that conjunction taking place in the same degrees as the Mars retrograde, as you said.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, brilliant. Were there any other transits that we meant to talk about? I mean, it looks like we're towards the end of the month here, so that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is I just really think for most Cancer suns or risings, for the most part, you guys are just going to be really busy with work. And I do think a lot of the serious Capricorn 7th house stuff around, you know, setting boundaries, putting in the work, being disciplined, you know, concentrating that energy on that 7th house is going to be a big theme. And I do think that's going to manifest in career areas as well. But I just think you're going to be for the most part, pretty busy this month working, but it doesn't sound like you're going to hate it. It sounds like you're actually going to really enjoy what you're doing every single day.
Yeah, part of it may just be the tension sometimes, because of course, when Mars goes into Aries, it's going to square some of those 7th house planets and form a square between Mars in the 10th of career and the Capricorn planets in the 7th house of relationships. So perhaps some tensions between like work and career, and having to figure out how to balance the tensions between those two, and maybe wanting to put a lot of energy into career, but then that drawing energy away from relationships, or vice versa, and some of the concessions that you have to make in order to balance out those two areas of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, brilliant. Well, I think that is it then for this month's horoscope. So thanks a lot for joining me. You actually do your own horoscopes each month for each sign on your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, I do a lot of astrology content on my YouTube at White Light Astrology. If you guys want to check me out, give me a sub. As well, if you guys are on Astro Twitter, follow me at White Light Cam. I'm always on Twitter talking about astrology. And then anything else, just check out my website at White Light Astrology, and you can see all my connections there.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks for joining me. I've also got posters I just launched last week. So these are the 2019 Planetary Alignments astrology calendar posters, which I'm sending out to people now. It's a lot of the artwork that we use in these episodes for the horoscopes each month, except it shows the transits for the entire year so that you can better track your own transits and see some of the things that are coming up a little bit ahead of time. So you can find out information about that at theastrologypodcast.com/2019 posters. And I'll put links to everything in the description page for this video below on YouTube. So thanks a lot for joining me today, Cam.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone for watching. And we'll see you again next month for the horoscopes for February of 2019. All right, good luck.